Comrade and colleague of Honorable Judge Essa Moosa, Chairperson of the Kurdish Human Rights Action Group KHRAG in South Africa. Dear Mahmoud Patel, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Comrade Erem. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you once again.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for that warm introduction as well.
Thank you, dear Mahmoud. As you know, the situation in Syria goes deeper and deeper as a conflict these days. Also, Kurdish leader Mr. Abdullah Ocalan has been visited by Dem party representatives. There is lots of things to talk about, but I would like to start asking about Judge Essa Moosa and remind who was he, as well as also a little introduction about you as well. So, who was Judge Essa Moosa and what was the relation of him with Kurdish leader Mr. Abdullah Öcalan? What did he do for Öcalan? Why he established KHRAG, which you are now co-chairing it? Very shortly, please.
The Kurdish Human Rights Action Group was formed to receive Comrade and leader Mr. Abdullah Ocalan in 1999, when he was not given any sanctuary by any country in the world. The late Nelson Mandela agreed to welcome him into South Africa if he could arrive either in Namibia or South Africa, and he was en route to South Africa in 1999. Part of that process was initiated by Judge Essa Moosa, who spearheaded the solidarity efforts and campaigns for the Kurdish leader as well as for the Kurdish people in South Africa, and he facilitated that process. However, as we know, when leader Apo was in Kenya, he was abducted and summarily taken to a military tribunal in Turkey and thereafter found to be incarcerated as we speak till today, going on for 26 years. Judge Essa Moosa and them, when they received the news in 1999 that leader Apo has been abducted and en route to Turkey, they immediately formed the Kurdish Human Rights Action Group in South Africa. And from then till today, we continue with working on projects for the release of leader Apo, as well as conscientizing South Africa, the rest of the world, on the issues that face leader Apo, as well as the Kurdish people. So Judge Essa Moosa was a lawyer of Nelson Mandela. He was also a lawyer that represented Winnie Mandela and hundreds, if not thousands, of human rights activists throughout the 80s, 70s, and 60s, right up to the negotiations when he was the secretary of the Constitutional Committee that framed our very respected constitution post-94. The work of the late judge with regards to leader Apo continued. He led the first Imrali delegation and subsequent ones right up until his passing in February 2017. I personally worked with the judge for many years on the issue of the release for Abdullah Ocalan, as well as for the Kurdish human rights struggles in Turkey, northeastern Syria, Iran, as well as in Iraq, and the global diaspora as well. So Judge's contribution is legion and stalwart. With his vast experience in the South African struggle for liberation, he brought that expertise and experience for the struggle for the freedom of the Kurdish people.
Kurdish leader Mr. Abdullah Öcalan has been visited by Dem party delegation on Imral Island and had a meeting there. So Kurdish leader Mr. Öcalan's message was very clear. If the ground is prepared, I have the enough power to bring conflict to the peaceful negotiations. How do you evaluate his message? How important is that? How should we read it? Very short, because we have.
We got to understand the context, which is a process that started from the time of leader Apo's abduction. So this comments that have been given with the latest visit that was allowed on the past Saturday, it's important for us to contextualize it in that way. So the plan of the AKP and those who control the fascist Turkish state has always been enmity between Kurdish and Turkish peoples. They are not really looking for a solution for the Kurdish people, but looking to strengthen and lengthen their rule in Turkey. And by us paying attention to what leader Apo has said, he is actually encouraging us to analyze the situation in that way. So, what we then can draw from this is that if the ground is prepared, he means that you need to make the conditions ripe for there to be engagement peacefully, engagement politically, engagement with sincerity. Because if you do that, then you can bring shared power to resolve the conflict through dialogue and peaceful negotiations for a future for both the Kurdish people as well as the Turkish people. Very similar to what happened in South Africa to a large extent. You had the apartheid state who then had to negotiate with the liberatory movement. However, I must emphasize, Leader Apo is still in prison and he is still open to this kind of scenario for a peaceful resolution and settlement for the Kurdish issue in Turkey, which will impact the broader region. So let us look at that statement that you have asked me in the context of looking for that. So the ground must be prepared, and the ground is prepared from the side of the Kurdish people. But have the Turkish people and the state been sincere in what they are doing when they say, like Bacheli has said recently, but we know it's not the case because they want the Kurdish movement and struggle to be subservient to the Turkish state.
I was just wondering to know if at the back of the time when the apartheid regime and the liberation movements was on the table, was it same as Turkey what they done to Kurds on 2013, 2015? The negotiation table has been left by Turkey. So was it the process was like that in South Africa as well? So how was it? Very shortly, please, this one.
Okay, the process was a long-standing one because of the international solidarity and the work by the liberatory movements internally in the country and outside. That mobilization made the state realize that it could not continue indefinitely oppressing the majority of South Africans. And individuals from that state itself decided that they need to negotiate a way out of the context that we were in at the time. So, unlike the Turkish state, they unconditionally released all our political prisoners as a first step, unbanned all our organizations, first as an act of good faith. Has the Turkish state done the same previously in 2013 and so on? No, we know that your leaders are still incarcerated. The leadership of the revolutionary movement are still in exile, and they have not been welcomed back with no conditions attached and in good faith. So the conditions in South Africa were not exactly the same that you have now with Leader Apo and the Kurdish movement as a whole in Turkey as well as in the region. So, firstly, the state itself was willing to start speaking for a better future and to find a political solution through dialogue. With the case of Turkey, it's not the case. What they are doing is using a strategy to delay the longevity and their political rule for a longer period. Remember, the AKP and the Turkish state under Erdogan is in a fix. And by putting out these signals to say, yes, now you can go and visit Leader Apo. Yes, you get this fascist, extremely conservative alliance member of the Turkish state making statements. But the statements are, you must give up your rights. You must give up your principles. That is not what happened in South Africa, because the leadership of the apartheid state, unlike the Turkish state, understood clearly that if they continue indefinitely, they will not win, and whatever they could have negotiated politically, they would lose it all. So they were more pragmatic and realistic, unlike this Turkish state, which is using its membership of NATO and the support it has from NATO to bolster itself to remain in the driving force in the region as well.
Thank you so much. So, another important question is about that many people are saying that if Öcalan was already free, with his ideas, he can solve the conflict in the Middle East. How important is Kurdish leader Mr. Öcalan's ideas in this manner, and for the whole world as well. How important is to set up a negotiation table, which including Öcalan as a one side of the piece. Please, very shortly, dear Mahmoud, we have couple of more other questions.
Sure. Remember, there's no kind of question to be entertained as to a political and negotiated solution. The fact that Leader Apo would and must be remain hopeful and optimistic that he will be released and he will be free to negotiate this future as the leader, the undisputed leader of the Kurdish people, and as a unified force and a voice. His knowledge, his intellect, his strategies that he's explained to us in his writings while under incarceration and before his incarceration clearly articulate a political system that is based on humanity and principles that would be of benefit and value not only for Kurdish people but also for the other people who are in Turkey. Doesn't matter the ethnicity, does not matter their faith nor their political ideology, provided they are responsible and integrate to accept equality, freedom, justice, and the rights of everyone. So Leader Apo's ideas, as well as his theoretical framework that we see to an extent in the democratic autonomous administration in the northeast Syria, playing itself out in reality, is what is there on the table for the future. But we know the Turkish state does not want to relinquish its power and its stranglehold on the state and what its driving force now in the region since the fall of the Syrian regime.
So you already mentioned about Öcalan's ideas, how physically we can see in the autonomous administration. So would like to ask that question after this answer. Basically, what would you say about the democratic system in Rojava that the SDF today defends, which is also under the threat of occupation by the Turkish state? Why Turkey attacking to the Kurds, and why is NATO still in silence in the frame of Öcalan's ideas that came to a life in Rojava? Very shortly, please, this one as well.
The revolution in northeastern Syria, or the Democratic Autonomous Administration of Northeast Syria, is established going on for 13, 14 years now. And it is based on Leader Apo's political philosophy, which has proven to the world that when a society is liberated, its women, all its ethnic groups, different religious denominations, as well as the youth who are given their rightful place in society to be flourishing, enabled, and to develop. We can see that that is happening in that region. And the previous regime, as well as the new proxies that are in power, the rebranded jihadists who are now in power, backed by Turkey and its ally that's funding it, or allies that are funding it from the Arab regimes and so on, from Qatar and elsewhere that are part of this new alliance in the region, fear what's in the democratic administration of Northeast Syria. They do not want an egalitarian, pluralistic, democratic society to take hold in Damascus going into the future, as well as in Turkey and the region. They realize that if this project is successful, they themselves would lose their power. That is what they fear the most. So, in practical terms, democratic confederalism, the rights of women, the rights of children, and a just system that enables people outside of a state centric system is what they fear and do not want to see there. So, yes, Rojava and what is happening there under the valiant protection and resistance by the SDF, the YPG, the YPG, and the people themselves who've come to the fore to stand up against the SNA in Manbij and so on, we've seen in the recent weeks, is an example of defense of democracy in the region as well as the globe.
Thank you, dear Mahmoud. So we started uh, to the Syria question. So let's continue from there. How do you see the future of Syria? How should it be shaped, and what is the role of the Kurds in this process? As you know, the Kurds are the most experienced ones in the region to build up a democratic system. So please, very shortly, very briefly, like in a minute, um, how do you see the future of Syria, and what is the role of the Kurds?
The role of the Kurds, without question, as the most experienced group in the region or formation, is vital for a future Syria that is united without sectarian lines, without nationalistic jingoism taking to the fore. The Kurds must remain united in the new Syria, no matter which grouping they come from, because that would be their strength to negotiate. And they must be accommodated with the new constitution that they are speaking about, that will come about, as well as the political structures in the emerging new Syria that will take place. Remember, it is an opportunity to rebuild the region and the country. That country or state, Syria, has an opportunity now to build itself for a better future for all its peoples. And the Kurdish people are integral under the experience that they have in Rojava for over a decade now. They have that to offer on the table in terms of governance, in terms of infrastructure development, security, human rights, and more importantly, freedom for all peoples.
As we always do, close our program with freedom for Öcalan message. Why Öcalan should be free, especially during this period of time while the Third World War still continues. With a sentence, please.
2025 is a decisive year for the freedom of Abdullah Ocalan physically, so that the peoples of the region can be free.
Thank you, dear Mahmoud Patel, comrade and colleague of the Honorable Judge Essa Moosa and chairperson of the Kurdish Human Rights Action Group, KHRAG, in South Africa. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for your valuable comments.
Thank you very much, Comrade Erem, and all the best to you and all our friends there. Thank you.
Thank you.